Clinton supporters, Jonathan Tassini and Maria Cardona. Jonathan's a former Sanders supporter and host of the Working Life podcast. Maria was a senior advisor to the 2008 Clinton campaign. New York One anchor and resident Trumpologist Errol Lewis joins us. So does Washington Post political reporter Philip Bump. Also with us, Trump supporters Kayleigh McEnany and Corey Lewandowski. Let me start with our nonpartisans, then we'll move over to our partisans. Philip, I mean, for Donald Trump, obviously, Florida is critical. The problem for him, though, is he's also got to get a bunch of other states as well.
That's exactly right. I mean, Florida is must win, not in the sense that if he wins Florida, he wins. It's must win in the sense that if he doesn't win Florida, he's dead in the water. He's got to pick up a lot of states. He's got to do better than Mitt Romney did in 2012. That's the baseline to think of. He is losing to Hillary Clinton in North Carolina right now, which Mitt Romney won in 2012. Arizona looks like it might be a toss-up. Georgia and Texas look closer. All these states that he has to defend, but at the same time, he still needs to win in Pennsylvania or in Ohio or in Ohio. There are all these states he needs to pick up as well. And right now, the math just isn't there. Florida is a must-win, but so are a lot of other states.
Errol, I mean, what's more important for Donald Trump, energizing the base or trying to reach out to any undecided voters who may still be out there?
At this point, with just 2 weeks left, it's probably better, and this is what political strategist, Corey may even agree with this, will tell you, is that you got to stick to your plan. There's not a lot of time to start shifting resources around. The reality is he still has a path to victory, he's got to win Florida. That's tough. We know that that's a battleground. If he can, he's got leads in Ohio, or he's within 4 points in Iowa and in Ohio. That brings him within 11 electoral votes. At that point, if he can get Pennsylvania, there's always going to be a stretch for Republicans. If he can get Pennsylvania, he's in the ballpark. He wins. If he can flip Nevada, he gets closer and closer. So you can't start redrawing all of your strategy, shifting all of your resources all across the country with just 2 weeks to go. That's not rational.
Phil, though, I mean, with this Obamacare, the premiums going up, does Hillary Clinton just try to run out the clock as long as she can on this and try not to mention it until she absolutely has to?
Yeah, I mean, it certainly doesn't do her any good to talk about it, right? You know, one of the things she's mastered over the course of this campaign is not talking about things she doesn't want to talk about. But, you know, it's important to remember there's already almost 10 million people that have voted, including in Florida, where there are, the Democrats and Republicans are essentially running neck to neck in who's come out to vote already. There's a lot of votes banked, right. And that's something that Hillary Clinton can rely on. Plus, she's got a much stronger ground game. She's got a lot of folks that are focused on getting people out to the polls for whom it's probably not going to make any difference, this Obamacare.
All right, we're going to talk to our partisans after a quick break. We got to take a break. We'll continue the conversation later. We're talking about Florida and why both candidates are fighting so hard for it right now.
You have 4 events today in Florida.
Right.
That is a must-win for you, correct?
Right. I believe Florida's a must-win, and I think we're winning it. I think we're winning it big.
29 electoral votes. You can't go to the White House unless you win in Florida. You would concede that, right?
I think that's probably true.
Donald Trump earlier today, back now with the panel. Corey, do you think Florida's must-win for Donald Trump?
I do, absolutely. I mean, look, if you look at the map that Mitt Romney had, he won 206 electoral votes. You need to win Florida, and if you give Donald Trump Ohio and Iowa right now, that leaves him 11 electoral votes short. There's a number of paths to get there. As we've heard earlier, there's a Colorado path, there's the Pennsylvania path, there's the Nevada, New Hampshire, and the 2nd District of Maine path. And I think what you'll see and what Kellyanne Conway, as campaign manager, has talked about is look at where they're deploying their surrogates. Eric Trump was in New Hampshire today. Donald Trump just announced he's going to be back in New Hampshire and Maine on Friday. He'll be making a West Coast swing to Nevada. They clearly look at this differently than what the other polls are saying. Their internal numbers say it's much closer than what many other people think. What's important is, if you look at some of the exit polling or some of the polling that's been done recently, look at the numbers Donald Trump is getting with the African-American community. The Monmouth poll today shows he's getting 16% in the African-American community in North Carolina. In Pennsylvania, he's getting 29% of the African-American community. In Wisconsin, he's getting 15%. These are unheard of numbers for a Republican. That should really scare Hillary Clinton as this race gets much closer.
Maria, does that scare you?
Well, I think Hillary Clinton should be scared, and I think she acknowledged it today where she's not going to take anything for granted. I think that's actually how you win.
Should she be scared about this Obamacare premiums going up?
Well, I think that she certainly needs to address it when she talks about it.
You do think she needs to address it?
I do think she should.
She's not addressing it so far.
Well, she had a radio interview today where she talked about it. But look, her position is not new. She has said before that this is a law that needs to be fixed. It certainly should not be repealed. You have 20 million people who have coverage who wouldn't have it if not for this law. But yes, there are certain problems that need to be addressed. That is not nothing. That's not anything new. So she needs to talk about it.
So Kayleigh, is this an issue you think that can make the difference for Donald Trump in the closing weeks?
Absolutely, because it's so intricately tied to the economy. You have voters who feel like they're hurting economically, and when you look at facing double-digit premium increases. That directly affects net home income.
I think it changes people's minds, people who were thinking about Clinton, but you think...
I 100% do, and I think it's been an underexplored issue. I know it came up in your town hall, but it didn't come up in either the first or third debate. There's been no real meaningful dialogue on Obamacare, and this is a place that directly affects the pocketbook. And when people go to the polls, they will remember the $800 premiums in some cases they're going to have to pay.
Yeah.
But the problem is, there's few problems. One is that Donald Trump is not capable of talking about any issue. If you look actually at all the debates, he can't put together more than 3 or 4 sentences that are coherent in talking about an alternative. The second thing I'll point out is the Republican Party in general has no alternative to Obamacare. You may remember, other than to throw people off care and to not have people be covered for pre-existing conditions, which Obamacare solved. The last thing I'll say is, to Hillary Clinton's credit, she has publicly stated that one of the things she wants to do with Obamacare is improve it by offering what would be called a public option. Many of us have said, and I think there will be a debate in the Democratic Party about this, that the only way to solve the health care crisis in general is to go to a single-payer Medicare for all system, which a public option, which she supports, is a step towards.
But Corey, it doesn't help Donald Trump when today he's saying, you know, he's got all his employees and he's saying, look, they're having trouble with Obamacare, and it turns out they don't have Obamacare because
he's fortunate enough to be able to provide them health care through his corporation.
Right, but is he the best messenger to try to prosecute a case against Obamacare?
Here's the message. If you're a Florida resident, 1.53 million people were on the system, and you take the Humana option, which is one of the insurers down there. You know what your premium increase is? Not the average 19%. That's the average across Florida. Right. It's 36.8% increase is what the Florida residents will see next year moving forward. That is devastating if you are a Clinton supporter or an Obama supporter, and you're going to the poll saying, I'm going to see a 37% increase. That's 1.5
And to the argument that a lot of folks have already voted, particularly in Florida.
If I'm Hillary Clinton, I'm putting every person I can in the bank right now, because the more this is talked about, the more concern she should have, because if my premium goes up 37%.
That does seem to make sense.
I'm very concerned.
The more people hear about this, the more
Sure,
people...
but I think a couple things, and we've talked about this already, especially in Florida. There has been already 1 million people who have voted. Florida is a state that is tailor-made for Hillary Clinton. You have Latinos who are voting right now at 99% more than what they voted in 2012.
So you don't think this Obamacare is
I don't think this is going to flip people for a couple reasons. There's not enough time, number one. And number two, to your point, Donald Trump is an awful messenger.
Well, I didn't say it was awful, I was asking.
No, you asked the question. But the point is that he's an awful messenger. He sounded absolutely clueless about what it was, not even knowing that Obamacare wasn't something that his own employees used. And so when you have that kind of comparison, people are going to say at least Hillary Clinton is addressing the problem, not wanting to take it away from me, because let's remember, 80% of the people are not going to be affected by these hikes.
The question is, will people believe they want to throw the whole thing out and start with something that the Republicans are going to offer, or to just amend what already exists?
Well, people can look back at history and know that the Republicans never offered anything but the free market solution, which was devastating to people. Tens of millions of people did not have health care coverage. I'll give you a good example of what's happening now in California. One of the reasons that the premiums are going up is because of drug prices. The Republicans opposed any attempt for Medicare and health plans in the exchange to negotiate over drug prices. There's a proposition in California, Proposition 61, which is attempting to reduce healthcare drug prices, and the pharmaceutical industry is spending $100 million. The pharmaceutical industry, which is funding the Republican Party, are big donors to the Republican Party, is spending $100 million to defeat this.
What Donald Trump says, though, is that it's basically a free market, but pre-existing conditions are going to be covered, and yet he doesn't really explain how pre-existing conditions can be covered unless there's a mandate.
Right. Well, I mean, it's, the Republican Party has been trying to put together a plan that can be the replace part of repeal and replace for years now. There isn't really a very good option. There haven't been many robust options put out there. I don't put this just on Donald Trump. I do think it's worth pointing out two things about this, though, that I think lessen the political effects over the course of the next 2 weeks. The first is that most of the people that are on the Obamacare exchanges are subsidized, so they're not going to see this big increase in their own pocketbook. But secondarily, this is also a 2017 increase, so this is going to happen.
Kayla, you said there is a good option.
Yeah, there's this myth. Republicans haven't put forward a plan. Paul Ryan's actually put forward a very detailed, very good plan involving healthcare savings accounts.
Which
and for Jonathan to sit there and advocate for the public option, 2 words, the Veterans Administration. We have had a so-called government-run health care system, and guess what? A lot of veterans died waiting for this care.
Well,
so
actually,
the plan
VA,
of taking us further down this road is a very poor one, and that will fall on deaf ears.
Public option, actually, the public option best explained by looking at Medicare, and there's nobody who is on Medicare. Medicare needs to be improved, but Medicare has kept millions of seniors from going bankrupt and from going into poverty. If we had Medicare for all, like all industrialized countries, like Australia, like many of the European countries, we would not have this problem.
We got to take a break. I want to thank the panel.